First, let us be happy and joyful for Danila Hutchison. Gave birth to a little boy last night, around 9 o'clock, 6 pounds plus, and everything's good. I guess born in, I don't know, Winston-Salem, or where the hospital ever was. So this is wonderful, huh? This is truly great. You know, the children, having children, giving birth, and new children being born. That's beautiful, wonderful. Last night, Sharon and I were over near Crabtree Valley visiting Marilyn. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Angelucci. Yeah, she's a long-time member. Angelucci. Italian husband. Long-time member. And as soon as I saw her, I recognized her as being, you know, someone that I've known for so many years, right? And she and her husband actually have been living in Afghanistan and working there. And also she's living right now in Turkey and working in Turkey. And she did spend many years living in Afghanistan also as missionary. So she is able to understand and look at things happening in the unification movement with a different type of perspective. So today I want to talk about the Greatest Commandment. Originally, I look at, Matthew, the book of Matthew. At first I was going to give service on all of Matthew. Each part of Matthew, there's about 4 or 5 different stories in Matthew that are very interesting. And in Matthew, Jesus is with his disciples, but he's being approached by representatives of the other faiths, the Jewish faith, the Sadducees and the Pharisees. If we were comparing it to our situation today, it'd be like the Baptists and the Methodists, or the Presbyterians and the Unitarian Universalists, or some representatives of the different denominations or the different sects of Judaism. And they're actually trying to get Jesus. They're asking him questions, not because they are sincerely wanting to know something true about God, but because they themselves already have a bad attitude toward Jesus, and they're trying to trip him up. So all of Matthew is just the different things that Jesus was being asked and his response. And here we read, it says in the Matthew, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. So here you have, first the Presbyterians, they tried to get him, but they couldn't do it. So now, one of the Methodists is going to ask the question, because their forte is in this field. So they ask, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Of course, all of us are very familiar with Jesus' answer, right? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. So Jesus answered the question. He was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He's asked for one. And Jesus says, this is the greatest commandment. But then, Jesus says something else. And the second is like it. Love your neighbors as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. But they only asked for one. Jesus is giving them 2. In fact, he's saying that they're equal in value. Why did he say this? Why didn't he just leave it with, love God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your soul? And the reason is this kind of my understanding based on the principle and Jesus' situation. Jesus understood. Even those persons that were asking him these pointed questions, that wanted to get him, they loved God. They completely 100% could agree with Jesus' answer. You should love God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your soul. But Jesus was making another point. He said, that's not enough to love God. You have to love your neighbor. You have to love other people. As much as you love yourself, you have to love others. And aren't there other scriptures where Jesus says, if you want to pray to God, before you pray to God, if you have something in your heart, if you have some anger or resentment toward your brother, you have to deal with that anger or resentment you have toward your brother before you come and pray. So, the greatest commandment is not just to love God, but the same thing. If you really love God, you will love other people. You will really love other people. From the bottom of your heart, with all your heart. And so here, Jesus was kind of addressing the fact that these people were trying to get him. So this is a central point to love, and to love others as much as you love yourself. And even loving others is loving God. You can't say you really love God if you don't love other people. That's one of the very deep teachings of Jesus. So I want to look at Father's words in this particular speech, let us know ourselves. We had Friday night, we gathered here, and one of our elder brothers, David Rendell, came. And Bob wasn't able to be here, but he gave us an important question to ask him. And that question was, what inspired you to write Sailing with Our Father? Because he was the one who, sailing with our Father, his ship will never... He wrote that song. So we did ask him that question, and we'll get to the answer of that. But
Hold on.
David, I recognized him. I couldn't put his name together with a face until I saw him. And then I remembered he also attended Reverend Ron's 40-day training many years ago, and he was able to share with us some of his personal experiences with Cookchinam, for example. He was with Cookchinam for 4 years, beginning Car Arms. When the business of Car Arms was beginning, he was with him and advising and working and being part of the development of that business. And also he worked many, many years with Tongil Industries and the machine business. And he worked with Hyunjinim for number one, H1, for a long time and for many years. And he worked with Hyunjinim, personally worked with him for several years. So he was able to share with us personal insight into his extended experiences being around them over a long period of time, and how they think and how they approach situations and circumstances. And I was very inspired and educated by that. Each of us at this meeting, if you weren't there, each of us shared a little bit about ourselves, but also he wanted us to share what is our concern. What are we thinking? What is important to us? And I think each of us that were there tried to very sincerely, express what what bothers us or what's important. And certainly one of the central questions was about the sanctuary church and so forth. So I hope in the course of, I want to try to bring, centered on Father's words, things that he shared with us at this meeting. You know, Father said in this particular speech, he said, you have your own physical parents, but ultimately you have one most important parent who created you, God. Your parents were the tools God used to create you. The journey in search of the true parents begins by loving nature, which is the first parent, then loving your physical parents, and then to the ultimate parent, God, who is our creator. God is the ultimate destination, our eternal parent. So, you know, we know that true Father, during his lifetime, he went out fishing, and he taught us that we can learn about God through nature. Actually, I was reading some quotations in the Chung Sung Young book, and there are places where Father said very directly, he said, nature is more valuable than the Bible. He said the scriptures are too limited. You know, you can learn certain things from the Bible, but if you really want to know God, you have to know nature. You have to know the natural world. And David Rendell also shared with us, you know, that true mother at this time, she also in some ways is very sensitive and very concerned about the creation. You know, environmentalism. Now, for some people, environmentalism issues, you know, are a red flag. You know, oh, warning, warning. You know, these are the liberals. You know, but there's a correct way to learn about nature and to take care of the creation. And Father, in many of his speeches, he made it very clear. He even explained that Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they were supposed to even learn about love by observing the creation around them, by the birds and the bees, you know, and the flowers and the trees, and the moon up above, and a thing called love. I think that's from a song, right?
Yes.
So, anyway, bottom line, Father even said, your first parent is the creation, the universe, the natural world. So, obviously, science and the study of science and research and discoveries in any field of science is valuable and precious. And Father did the science conferences. And that he wasn't just paying lip service to scientists, you know, just to say, well, look, see, I'm interested in science too, but I'm really a religious person. He was sincerely and genuinely connected to the creation. We have to be very serious about the world, the natural world around us, and remember that there's more going on than just, you know, you and I, you know, and our struggle with each other. That there's a beautiful, incredible natural world, a creation out there that we're meant to learn from. So the creation is our first parent. Then we have our physical parents, you know, and, you know, each of us knows the nature of our relationship with our parents, how profound it is and important it is. And some of us, we have a very good relationship with our parents. Some of us, not so much. You know, there's, you know, sometimes parents fail, you know, and also, I mean, parents can be the greatest source of suffering in your eternal life if they abuse you or if they're not good parents, you know. So, but the parents are the second parents, and then finally it's leading to our relationship with God. Then Father says the moment of death, which everyone now fears, is actually the moment of fulfillment. If you live your life in the right way here on the earth, then your life leads ultimately to the one common parent. Then the moment of death actually liberates you to live with that parent for eternity. He is the true parent to us all, who has true love with no end. Life with him is what we call the kingdom of heaven in heaven. Life with God, the true parent. You know, again, Father, here's Father speaking. He's not directing us toward him personally. He's directing us always toward God. Toward God. God is the eternal parent. God is the true parents. You know, when we die, we're going to meet God. We're meant to live with God if we live our lives the right way. If we live our lives the right way. It seems to me like Father always included himself. You know, even though sometimes he spoke strongly to us and said, you know, I have done this, I have done that, you know, seeming to praise himself. But only if he had done those things. And only because he said, look, I did it, now you do it. You do what I did. And Jesus was exactly the same way. When Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He said nothing about himself. He didn't say, well, the greatest commandment is, you should follow me. You have to follow my words. I. No. He said, he put the attention to God. And then he put the attention to people. He said, the greatest thing you could do is to love God with all your heart. And then you love people, love other people. And Jesus could do that with a pure mind and heart, because that's what he was trying to do himself. I am trying to love God. I am trying to love you. We, together. The principal atmosphere of that world is supreme love. That love is not selfish, but is based on sacrifice and service. Because it is based on that universal law, that supreme love flourishes. The kingdom of heaven in spirit world is our ultimate destination. And our physical life here on earth is only a workshop. No matter how long you live, it all nurtures you to enter eternal life in heaven. When I discovered the core truth of the universe, that is what I found. Earthly life is merely preparation for eternal life, and it is here that we pass or fail. With that realization, I then prayed to know the basic principle of the universe, and the answer came. The Father-Son relationship is the backbone of the universe. That is the relationship you have with the creation, with your parents, and with God. The central theme of that relationship is love. So, when we are living and experiencing the creation, we understand, this creation and me, we have a relationship of parent and child. Or my physical parents, or God is my eternal parent. While we are here on earth, we are attending the most important workshop of all, learning this principle so that we can ultimately reach our destination in heaven and enjoy our Father-Son relationship with God for eternity. This is why the Unification Church exists and why I am leading you. MFT Life is training to make a relationship with God for eternity. Any money we raise comes out of nature, and we value it accordingly. You can tell the money that after it has longed to be used for God's purpose, it has finally come to the right place, because you will connect it to the true parents and God. Money. Money. Money, money, money. Money. Suddenly I'm stuck on that word, money. It's time to make a donation, brother. That's what this message is about. It's time to reach in deep. No, money. Money is the creation, okay? Nothing represents the actual physical creation more than money does. Because with money, you use it to get things that you need, or things that you want, or even things you don't want. But someone else wants you to have them, or you have to have them even if you don't want them, like insurance or whatever, or paying the traffic ticket. Money is the creation, because it's a system that developed, this whole monetary system that we have, for better or for worse, and there's different ways to look at it. But the bottom line is, if you have money in your hands, it gives you access. I can buy flowers with money. I can get something to eat with money. I can put gas in my car so I can travel with money. I can put clothes on my body with money. I can get a pedicure or a manicure with money. I can get a massage with money. You know, money is the creation. So whenever we're involved in any endeavor that has to do with the exchange of money, we should be thinking in a heavenly way about that. We should realize, you know, this is the creation. God's creation is connected to this money. And that's what, you know, Father tried to teach us through MFT. Now, you know, we could say, oh, some of the money was spent this way, and it was supposed to be spent there. That's not the point. Father's attitude, our heart, our understanding of our financial situation is it's the creation. And we want to learn how to relate to this creation correctly. So money is important. Father said sometimes, you know, if you abuse money or misuse money, you can be judged in the spiritual world. You know, if you steal from people or you try to take, that's the creation. It doesn't, you know, there's a part of the creation that naturally belongs to you because you're a son or daughter of God. We are co-creators, co-owners. We own this universe. You know, you and I own this building. You know, this is my microphone. You know, this is my, but it's not mine, it's ours, right? And we want to use it for God's purpose, but we have a certain heart, a certain attitude. You know, whenever I go to Cheonpyeong or any of these places, East Garden, I've always felt there's a part of me that owns that place. There's a part of me that feels, you know, this is my home. As much as it belongs to God or as much as it belongs to true parents, it belongs to me, personally. You know, I belong there. I can be there if I want. I could walk upstairs and go into Father's room if I wanted. I mean, I didn't do that. But we're meant to have this sense of ownership over the creation and also in our relationships with people. He said, wherever you go in the world, you face certain difficulties and persecution, out of which you gain value for your work. If everything came easily, then it would have little value. You desire to link whatever money you have, whether large or small, to true parents, so that it will have true value. All things have been fervently waiting for this relationship, and you are the mediator who will make it happen. No matter how old and distinguished and socially accomplished you are, you still need to make this link with nature and restore material for the sake of God. Material. Because we are material beings. Another important part of our mission is restoration of men. When you see other people, you can think that they have been waiting a long time to be restored to God. Now you can go to them because you know the way and purpose of life. You can be the mediator to bring them to God. By reaching out to the people, you are actually serving your parents as well. And having you as their children, they shall be glorified and saved. By finding the strayed sons and daughters of America, you are serving your own parents in addition to loving them. And together, you can come to true parents. You know, when I've read these words in the past and when Father taught this, it gave me great hope. My parents, you know, don't like the Unification Church. My parents have never liked, you know, Father and Mother, and they don't like that I joined this movement, and they don't like a lot of things about it. But they've always been my parents, and they've always, you know, thank God in my case, you know, they were always trying to be reasonable and fair. And so, you know, they limited the amount of interference that they tried to, you know, do to get me out of this movement. You know, Sharon, she was kidnapped, you know, after we were matched, and, you know, and sometime in 1980, you know, she was physically kidnapped by her sister and her mother because they were influenced by the deprogrammers. So, you know, and that creates a certain, you know, difficult situation. You know, everything's fine now, but here, Father is saying, if you go out and love other people, don't worry about your parents. Because you're taking care of your parents. Your parents will someday come to realize and appreciate what you've done. Because you're serving God, and true parents, and they are connected to you. They're going to come with you. They're going to come with you, whether they like it or not. Because they're your parents. That's the way it works. As parents, we know, it's the way it works. Whatever happens to our children, we're involved, whether we like it or not. So Father is saying the same thing. When you truly live this noble life, there are no parents who will not welcome you. As much as you practice loving the people of the world, you can certainly love your own parents and brothers and sisters to that degree. You love them as representatives of the true parents, and as someone who was commissioned by God. They have that value. No family would reject such a child, but would bow down eventually. There is one more training course left, the training of the spirit world. You have to know how to deal with and serve the spirit world and liberate it. You should be in a position to love the spirit world, and no one can make you realize this except the Messiah. That is the most important training remaining before you can love God. So, now a little bit funny, the spirit world and the Messiah, loving the spirit world, and only the Messiah can help us to understand and love the spirit world. The Messiah comes as director of training, setting the example of how to love people, the world, and spirit world. Then you can pass the ultimate test. Before the coming of the Messiah, the spirit world was divided, with no harmony or cooperation anywhere in the midst of all that complexity. When the Messiah comes, he will create unity, and barriers will go down. It is one of his qualifications that he fulfill this while he is on earth. He is the one man on earth who has the power to control the spirit world. So, when you and I think about controlling the spiritual world, probably, as coming from a Christian foundation, we think about Jesus doing miracles and healing the sick and giving the lame the ability to walk, and the blind can see, and in certain cases there were people that seemed to be dead and they came back to life, some kind of resurrection. But if we really look at our movement in its longer, over the years, and we look at True Father's teaching and his practice and his way, he explained very clearly that the restoration of the spiritual world takes place by changing your heart. If you are in a situation, a circumstance similar to the situations or the circumstances that the people in past history faced, and when you meet that situation and circumstance with God's heart, and you have the heart of true love, then the situation changes. The story of Cain and Abel. Cain killed his brother Abel. Abel and Cain are in the spiritual world, and Cain is the murderer of his brother Abel. And he has to live with that guilt in the spiritual world. Then, on the earthly plane, Jacob and Esau are put in the same position. Only this time, Esau, feeling the same way as Cain, doesn't kill his brother. And instead, he forgives his brother. And they embrace and they love each other. And that restoration is the restoration of that love. And therefore, Cain and Abel in the spiritual world feel liberated. Oh, I couldn't do it, but Esau did it. Esau is just like me, and he did it. And I identify with him, and I feel for him. And thank you, Esau. And Jacob, and feeling like Abel. That's how the spiritual world is restored. Only true parents could come and teach that. Only the Messiah guided us through our whole life to live our lives this way by teaching us the principle of restoration through indemnity. The formula course, the foundation of faith, the foundation of substance. That is how the spiritual world is restored. Not through miracles or, because look, I can heal this person. That temporarily restored their physical body, but it didn't make them members. Think of all the thousands of people that Jesus affected through his miracles. none of them became disciples. None of them really followed Jesus with an understanding and a commitment. They were healed, and okay, thank you, magician Jesus. Thank you, Dr. Jesus. Thank you, friend Jesus. But they didn't understand Jesus as the Christ, as the Messiah. That's who true parents are. So he is the one man who has the power to control the spirit world. How does he control the spirit world? By unconditional love. By loving. By being put in the same situation. Right? Father imprisoned. Father taken to a place in Japan, tortured in Korea for 3 days, tortured and thrown out into the snow, thought to be dead, physically dead, coming back to life, still having the heart of love, and I'm going to continue, then going to Hyundai prison for 2 years and 8 months. The same amount of time that Jesus' public ministry, when Jesus was 30 years old, he began his public ministry, and then by the age of 33, he was killed. Reverend Moon, in prison, 2 years and 8 months, same course. Who knows this? Only we know this. God, true parents, and we know this. Other people could know it if they want to study it, but maybe they never will. But the reality is there. This is the meaning of restoration of the spirit world. Not doing, spiritual phenomena. I mean, those things might be good and they might be useful, but the real restoration is when the heart changes. The true parents are those who represent not only this physical world, but also the spirit world and God, under whom you practice love. If you go to spirit world without knowing the Messiah, it might take several million years to learn to love people there. But when you accept the Messiah while on earth, you can accomplish many millions of years of work in a short time. By obeying the true parents here on earth, you are entitled to receive recognition for loving all spirit world and obeying all its rules. So, we could abuse these quotations and misunderstand them. But taken in context, it's not saying that, Father's not saying, if you love me, you're going to go to heaven. He's explaining that I was able to go this path, this course of restoration through indemnity. Artistically, I have loved. And if you are able to love me and understand me and respect me and follow me and support me, I will let you inherit what I went through so that you won't have to go through the same things. But your heart, your capacity to love, your sensitivity to God and to the real situation of life can be like mine. I will bless you with that. That's a blessing. You can inherit from me instead of going the same course I went. If you just trust me, if you believe in me, if you have faith in me, or who I am, then you can have the same heart. You don't have to go to Hyundai prison. You don't have to be persecuted on this extent. You don't have to have your heart torn apart and still love unconditionally. God doesn't want that. He doesn't want people to go that way. But the Messiah went that way. And because he went that way, he has the authority to give the blessing and to pass the victory and to give the fulfillment of that to us. The true parents represent not only this physical world, but also spirit world and God. And by obeying God's representative, you demonstrate your obedience to God. By loving them, you can pass every level. Now you know why unity with true parents is necessary. They represent the heart of God, so that by loving them, you have already loved God and the spirit world. That is the culmination of loving all parents. Nature, your physical parents, and God. So who teaches that nature is the first God, or that your parents are the second God, or that God is real, and that someday after we die we are going to live with God, and that the center of everything is love? Who explained and taught that clearly? No one except Reverend Sun Myung Moon. Jesus would have taught these things, but he was killed. And that's why he promised there would be a second coming. The Messiah has to come again. And Father did it. Father and Mother together did this. That's why they say, if you love us, if you trust us, if you follow us, how do we love and trust and follow? Okay, one very clear, very simple way. I'm going to let you pick my spouse. I'm going to let you bless my marriage. I'm going to say that you have authority over my life through blessing my marriage, which means I believe that you are my parents. Not just God, not just my physical parents, not just nature, but the true parents also. I accept true parents as my parents. You know, that's always been the part of my own parents that they're so angry about. Oh, you know, you think Reverend and Mrs. Moon are your true parents. You don't think we're your true parents. I tried to explain it. You know, you can explain it theologically, you know, reasonably. But, you know, your parents, you know, maybe they're not going to accept it. It's okay. You know, I'd say, it's okay, Mom, I love you. You know, you're my true parents. You know, you're my true physical parents. I mean, without you, I have no true parents. You know, when I think about the situation, I always think, without my parents, I don't need true parents. I don't have a relationship with true parents. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? You know, which is more important? Well, of course, you know, true parents are the true parents of all mankind. Without them, we don't connect back to God. But if I don't exist, if I wasn't born, I never meet the true parents. So my parents, you know, without them, so it's all connected. It's all connected. Until true parenthood was installed, all love was divided, and there was no harmony. Now, by loving the true parents, you are in a position to love them all. All kinds of love. That's, you know, that's where all our problems lie. In our inability to forgive or to love or to unite with each other because of our fallen nature, because of our history of resentment, because of our race, our nationality, our religion, our culture, our political association, you know, all of it, you know, it comes down to the love factor. If you fail on other levels, but in the end you accept true parents, you have demonstrated your loyalty and love to indemnify all the past. Everything culminates in that supreme accomplishment. If you are given a paper signed by the President of the United States, it has power everywhere in the land. In the same way, if you pass this final level of loving true parents, you pass every other level as well. That is why it is an absolute necessity to have true parents. So even if people don't know anything about Reverend and Mrs. Moon and the Unification Church history and so forth, if we really truly are connected to God through true parents by trying our best to follow their standard, then the people that connect to us will connect to true parents through us. That's why we are called tribal messiahs. That's what it means. We obviously, I've said many times, and you all agree with me, we're all meant to become true parents. And it doesn't mean, it's not a free ticket. If we aren't loving people, then if we aren't loving people in the sense of loving other people, or if we aren't loving people in the sense that I'm a loving person, then we won't feel comfortable. We won't feel comfortable in the place we call the kingdom of heaven. Because we'll be embarrassed, or ashamed, or guilty, or, oh, I don't want to see that guy. Oh, man, I remember what I did to him. Oh, man. Or, it's like some person that just gets out of jail, some criminal running into some guy on the street, and this guy becomes his friend and says, hey, I'm going to some neighbors tonight. We're having a cookout. You want to come along? So, yeah, all right, man, I'll come along. And he goes to the cookout, and it turns out that it's the Policemen's Benevolent Society. A bunch of, the guy happens to be a friend of all these police officers, and now this ex-criminal is coming there. How would he feel, in that, he'd feel, like he wouldn't feel comfortable because he has all these misgivings, this stuff left behind. But if we have the right relationship with true parents, and through true parents to God, we are meant to be able to overcome and to be forgiven and to feel that sense of forgiveness to the extent that we should feel comfortable with each other. We should feel comfortable. We should be able to go, if we want to the sanctuary church and sit there and have give and take. We should be able to go and sit with Hyunjin, wherever he is, I guess somewhere in Seattle, maybe hang out with him or something. We should be able to see or have give and take with Injin or Kukjin or any of our members. It doesn't mean, I believe what you believe. Obviously, most of us don't believe what each other believe. We were having conversations with David Wendell. We had conversations with Marilyn yesterday. But people have all kinds of different agreements or beliefs, and a lot of times, they revolve around other members. Oh, this member is this way, and I don't like this, and I'm afraid this member is doing this, and I wish he or she would do this or that. And, okay, there's nothing wrong with being concerned about others. We're concerned about each other, just like parents are concerned about their children. Oh my God, my son's doing this, my daughter's doing that. What do I do? Okay, there's nothing wrong with that, even being involved. But there's a heavenly way with God's heart and God's spirit, a heavenly way to be involved in in people's lives. So we have to be very, very careful. And that's our mission. That's why we're here at this workshop. That's why God invited us to attend this special heavenly workshop He calls your life, so that you will be able to learn these things and pick up some key points and pick up some bits of information and techniques. We'd be able to learn a few techniques, how to deal with this kind of person or that kind of person. When you're playing your heart out and your team loses by 44 points, how do you get on the bus and go back home? Whatever happens in your life, how do you deal with it? How do you grow with it? And that's the workshop we're attending. And we will graduate from this workshop someday when we pass away. That's the only time the graduation is going to happen. Until then, whether you like it or not, you are still in attendance of this workshop. And it's a good thing to do, and it's great. So that is why it is an absolute necessity to have true parents. Okay? True parents. One thing, and I'm just going to close with this, one thing that David Rendell shared with us, because we were asking him about, Sanctuary Church and the True Children. And basically he said, and Sharon specifically asked the question, well, we're told that Hunjnim was blessed 3 times. Anointed 3 times by true parents. And David said, yes, he was anointed 3 times by true parents, which is true father and true mother. Together, they anointed him, gave him some kind of anointing. Now, he didn't go into detail about the circumstances and the exact wording and everything, but he said, however, true parents anointed him to have this kind of position to take up after the true parents are finished. It's kind of like true parents finish and then he takes over. But true mother is still here. So this is the situation. It created a kind of, unfortunately, in the minds and in the hearts of the true children, they somehow disconnected true mother from true father. They don't look at their parents as being equal in authority. So when true father passed away, they began to kind of look at the situation as, okay, now it's my time to take my position and be in charge. But for whatever reason, and he didn't try to offer any clear explanation, and I think all of us can just reflect and pray and try to understand. For some reason, they tend to not look at their mother as being a person who is able to take authority and have the authority at this time. And so they're obviously complaining and criticizing and trying to not just ignore her, but even sometimes trying to, speak badly about her. Because look, she's in the way here. I'm supposed to be in charge. So without passing judgment, without, making a criticism, this is the situation. There's confusion. There's confusion. So in David said something to the effect, that Hyunjinim is prematurely trying to take a role in our movement that he's not really supposed to take yet. And of course, it goes without saying, because he's doing it prematurely and the way he's doing it, he's hurting or damaging or creating chaos or confusion for those of us that are still here, and possibly hurting his future situation. Because obviously, the way we relate to him and think about him now is changing, because he's putting us in a conflicting situation where we're having to choose things. So, but over all of that, above and beyond all of that, the fact of the matter is that we are still all one family of God. We are still under the true parenthood of God, who is the ultimate true parent. And true parents fulfilled and accomplished the purpose for which they came. And so our responsibility is to practice, be true parents ourselves, to love and forgive and unite. Forgive, love, unite. So yesterday, I heard, and I don't know any details, David Rendell was in Winston-Salem. And he had lunch. He spent a lot of time, and all of the Hutchersons came. And then Will Suttles and Mrs. Suttles was there. And they spent like 4 hours together having lunch and talking and everything. And then, obviously just a few hours later, after they were finished at 5 o'clock, then this incredible blessing came, and Danella gave birth to the little baby boy. And so I don't know the details of what they talked about and what they shared, but David Rendell is coming to Greensboro. He's going to be in Greensboro, Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sharon and I are going to be there, and Bergie is going to be there, and who is it? David Kahn, one of...
A lot of people, maybe 40 people from all over America.
Yeah, including people who are connected to Joe Wakari. People who are connected to other, you know, the Episcopalians or the Luciferians. Thought I'd throw that in there. Lutherans, I meant. Even people that are connected to the Lutherans, the Luciferians, you know, are going to be there. So maybe we'll get a chance to talk. Who knows? But the bottom line is, let us continue to be confident in the fundamental principles that true parents taught us. The principles of restoration, and that restoration of the spiritual world and everything is about our relationships with each other. You know, with strangers or with each other. You know, including your own sons and daughters and your own parents. You know, and anyone that's been involved in your life. Okay, thank you. Before we close, as part of our service, I'd like to invite up Yako to come and to share with us. She visited Hisai, and also yesterday Carl called me, and I spoke to him on the phone for about 20 or 30 minutes. And he called me because Hisai told him he should call me and report to me, and he did. And I was very grateful to have time to talk with him. He's doing much better. He's relieved because, he didn't say it, but I know he's relieved. He was able to pay the rent, and the immediate situation concerning finances was taken care of for him. But he did say that Hisai is... she cannot get out of bed anymore. So I want Bianca